Hello again, and it's time for another project. Today we're going to route out this mosaic effect fish. It's hard to see from the pattern, but there's a nice big fish going across there, and we've got some reeds coming up and a bit nice blue water in the background. Obviously the idea for me today is to literally going to route out all these sections. It's a slow process. Good thing about wood, you could do an hour today, put it to one side, you can always come back and do another. So like I say, I want to route out all these sections here, leaving the black border lines in between as a barrier, and then once we've completed it all, we'll get it the resin side of things and literally use our coloured resin to fill in to give it the effect of a mosaic where you would normally have tiles, where we'll be having resin. So we've got our template sorted. I actually just googled mosaic patterns, and this was a free pattern off a site off the internet. I blew it up to the size I wanted. We placed it on this recycled wood. This piece of wood started life as a wardrobe, so it's some kind of pine, and it will do the job for what you would need. Spend a couple of minutes just sanding it down. I've cut it to size, which is 19 inches by 19 inches. Oversized it just to make it a nice frame that's going to fit all the way around, incorporated with the actual project itself. So we've stuck it in place, we've marked off where we want it, we've got it as central as we're going to get it. We've stuck it down with a bit of painter's tape, and I like to use good old carbon paper underneath. Certainly not this one. I think this is the original one for when I started my projects. This is well past its sell-by date. So you want a nice fresh piece of carbon paper. Remember, you want the dark side, which would be that one. That goes down with your ink, and you want the printer side on top. And you just draw over it. Pop that underneath, should I say. Draw around it all. It's a slow process, and there is different methods to do this. Some people stick that straight to the wood and route over the top. I did try it the once. I certainly won't try it again. I believe there's acetone, there's certain papers, certain stuff you can put on. Do this in reverse image, turn it upside down, rub the back of it and transfer the image that way. It just doesn't work for me. So good old-fashioned carbon paper or graphite paper underneath and draw around it. That way we've got our image, as you can see from there. That's all ready to go now. And there we have it. It's a lot to look at. There's a lot of work involved, I must admit. But like I just said previously, we can take our time and just route out as we go. Another option, just quickly, you could route out all the lined areas and paint the actual tiled section, shall we call it, mosaic section. Whereas today, I'm going to route out the tiled section and fill it in with resin. And depending how it ends up, we could flood coat the full piece with resin if we wanted to. I personally like the little barriers raised slightly above the resin, so you can actually feel it as well as look at it. Now, for me, I like to use these CNC bits. They come in different degrees. They're 20s. These one here are 15s and 10s, and that's literally just the angle of the cut on the end. Now, they do have a Dremel size shaft, should I say, a 3.175, so it's a little shaft on it like so, and they will fit a Dremel if you want to use the router attachment that fits on the Dremel. And like I say, I think that's a 15 degree. You can more or less see. We're going for it? Maybe not. Okay, not to... There we go. We just about got it there. So that's a 15 degree, that one. However, to fit a router, you need a collet adapter, reducer collet, 6.35. You would literally just pop that in the end like so. Put it into the silver end. And the darker section, that will now fit your router. And that has become a 1/4 inch shaft. They're perfect for doing all our lines. Remember, when you do your lines, we don't want to route out on the line itself, because I'm removing the inner section. I'll route out up to the line, and on this one up to line there. Don't route out on the line, because some of these are quite small distances, and if you route on the line, even though that's 3mm wide, depending on your depth, you're going to narrow that line. So always up to the line. If it's outset, up to the line. Inset, up to the line on the inside. So we will go all the way around with this one little piece. You can see there, that's ready to pop in now. Now the depth I like to use is 3mm on this one. So that's plenty for the resin to stay in, no problem whatsoever. I made myself a little gauge like that. You can see from that, hopefully that second one there, or was it the first one? That is 3mm, and that literally is the thickness of the CNC bit. That's how I do it. You can buy gauges, should I say, depth gauges off eBay or Amazon. But a bit of wood just does a job. And we will put this in the router, put the router over the top of there, and we can set it to that depth. That way, if we go back to another job, we can come back and set it to the same depth again. So once we've done all our lines, remember, we'll move on to these end milling bits. These are fantastic for cleaning out with. I've certainly got no issues with these. And we can get one a decent size because they're not overly small, these, and it's just a simple case of removing your CNC bit, and you pop that into the same end. They do come with these barriers on. You will also find them without the barrier on, but if they've got the barrier, you can just push it straight up to there, nice and snug. And we'll pop that in the router. Remember, we'll set it to the same depth as that one, 3mm, and literally clear out every one of these. A general tidy up. Then hopefully we're on to the resin side of things. It's going to be a slow one, but I think the work involved will be worth it when we definitely pop in our resin. Right, we've got our CNC bit in the router. We've got our little gauge. That just fits under there nicely. So that's the depth we're going to work at, 3mm. What I'll do is start routing out 3 or 4 of these. You'll get the general idea. Remember, we've got the full piece to do, so we don't want to film all that. It's just the same thing over and over again. Right, you can see from that we've gone round all our little sections with the CNC bit, so they're all nicely cut out now. Remember, we're after a mosaic tiling effect, so we're not overly concerned if these lines in between are perfect. In fact, we want to go out of the way to make them look imperfect, if you know what I mean, so it looks like we've actually tiled it and put grout in between. So that's our CNC bit done. So we can simply just remove that like so. You'll get a lot of projects out of that little piece here. Now I'm going to start off with these end milling bits. We'll just get a nice one that's going to fit in. We can actually go for the biggest one, I think, to be honest, because these are quite they're not overly small, and that piece will fit into all the sections. And it's just a case of slotting that into there. We'll pop that back in the router. Now I've removed a couple of these little sections so we can set it to the same depth as that, or obviously we'll just use our little piece of wood again, set the same depth, and then we're just going to remove all the inside of these bits. Now there is better bits out there, more expensive bits. These are another favourite of mine, straight flush bits. That little one would be ideal. They come with a 1/4 inch shaft on them, so you don't need the adapter collet, and you could set that to the same depth and that will whip them out no problem. So we'll see how we go on. We'll start off with the milling bits, and if not, we'll go on to the straight flush bits. Obviously you couldn't use something as big as this because you're not even going to fit it into the holes, but that's a beast of a thing. That will clear out really nice. And just while we're on regards to router bits, I have this one here. That's actually 3 inches long, is that blade on that. I tried to use that once. I struggled to hold the router, never mind do anything with it. So they do vary in size, shapes and price, so it's just finding one that you're comfortable with. Oh, excuse me. So we'll start off with our little end milling bits, and if it's a little bit slow, we'll move on to the straight flush bit. Okay, let's start clearing these sections out. Right, you can see from that it's clearing out nicely with the end milling bits. Certainly have no problem with those. They're perfect if you do a lot of detailed work where it's a little bit fragile and you don't want any of these centre barriers, as I'm calling them, breaking off. Remember, they're like little dams to us. We're going to have two different opposite colours of resin once we start filling it in, so we definitely want to keep those in place. Now it's coming off nicely, as I say, with those end milling bits, which are these ones, remember, but it's just a little bit too slow. I do feel by the colour of that my bits are just about done for. So it's about time I ordered some new ones. So for the rest of the project, if you remember previously in the video, I did mention the straight flush bits. These are fantastic for clearing out with. Back in the day when I first started, I had the smallest one of these, the 1/8 bit I do believe, and I used to do my lines and my clear out with the 1 bit. Now I've got that bit in the router now, as you can see, so that's the smallest one. They come in a pack of, I think it's about maybe 5, 6 or 7, going up from the big one down to the smallest one. And I used to do my full project just with the 1 bit. However, I have since found the CNC bits and the end milling bits. And the reason, just quickly, why we do go around with the end milling bit is just to separate, obviously, the wood, that section there, from the barrier section. Some bits can be quite aggressive, and if you come in with this and that side without doing that CNC bit in between, or a profile bit, or a lining bit, there's that many different bits out there. You could come in with this one and that one could snap off. You might just break that section off, then you're going to have to modify it to fit afterwards. So we go around with a CNC bit or profile bit just to separate the 2 pieces of wood. So when you come in with something a little bit more aggressive like this, or you imagine doing a really big project with that, you'll find that that's going to be tugging out pieces of wood as we get to the corner. And you'll see when I start using this one how quickly it'll pull it out. The base won't be as nice, it won't be such a nice finish on it, but we are going to go around with a Dremel afterwards just to tidy it up. And remember, we are filling it all in with resin, so you're not going to see any of the bottom section, and you're not going to see 3/4 up the side wall. So we don't have to go too concerned about what it looks like underneath the resin. So we've popped our 1/8 bit in there, straight flush bit. We've set it to the same depth, as you can see. That moves around there nicely. So we're going to use this bit now and literally just complete the rest of this project. You'll see how quickly it pops out, and you'll notice as we're going around how we come to the corners and it basically just tugs the wood out. That's how aggressive they are, but they are nice bits on the other hand. Okay, let's clear the rest of this project out. Right, you can see from that we've made it all the way around. Now those straight flush bits, they certainly get it out a lot quicker. However, it's a little bit rougher in comparison to the end milling bits. But like all my projects, I like to go around with a Dremel and some engraving bits just to give it a general tidy up. So just to recap, that was your straight flush bit. Back in the olden days, as I call it, I'll just use that for everything, my lines and my clear out. However, I've since found these end milling bits. These are fantastic for clearing out within small places. They're ideal because they will route out the side walls, and also the bottom piece is rough, so it will give you a nice smoother finish on the bottom. So it's a personal thing. End milling bits, spiral up cuts, profile bits, CNC bits, straight flush bits, lining bits. You pick the bit you want for yourselves. These are just what I use, and they're just eBay or Amazon specials. So you can see from that we've got the general idea Remember, we're going to fill all this in with resin to give us our mosaic effect. So just before that, I like to give it a general tidy up. Excuse me. I like to use these cheap engraving bits. They come in different sizes and shapes. I like to pick one that's got a nice flat bottom on it. Pop it into the Dremel. I like to use a flexi cable on mine. Just there again, cheap eBay specials. And we'll pop it in there, and that would be ideal. Just go around and give it a nice general tidy up. A bit of sanding down, and before that, a little mouse sander. And just give it a nice skim over. This will look totally different again. I don't want these edges too sharp, so we're going to get in there a bit of sandpaper and just sand things down slightly. And then we'll be on to the linseed oil, bit of spray, and then we'll start filling in with resin. Let's tidy up now. Right, you can see from that, that's enough sanding down and general tidying up for me. For those eagle-eyed ones among you, you will notice on the last little clip when I mentioned about tidying up, I actually had one piece left over here that I'd missed out. So we removed that quickly. So next stage now for me is boiled linseed oil. I do use this on nearly all my projects. And I've just to say got enough left in there. And all we're going to do is darken this wood back down again. So it's just a simple case of brushing it in, wiping it down, and then just leaving it for a day to dry. And then we'll get on to spraying it with some kind of sealant. Now we just want to get right inside there. We want to get those side walls done. And the wood itself on the side framework, just show you quickly. You can see from there how nice and dark. That's going back again with the linseed oil. Not forgetting to do the side pieces as well. Pick that one up, what's left of it. And that will just darken it down nicely. Like so. So we'll do all this piece with this. You can really see that wood coming back through now. You just see from there how nice and dark that's gone. And like I say, we'll just do the full piece. We can throw it in, we don't have to be too particular, just basically long as we cover it all. It will soak in nicely, and then a quick wipe over, and we'll let it dry, and then we'll come back when it's ready for spraying. Okay, I'll finish this off, and then we'll spray a bit of varnish on it. Right, you can see from that, that's gone nice and dark with that linseed oil, and it's all dried now. I left it a day or two just to make sure it just dried nice and quick. Does that linseed? I certainly got no problem with that. Boiled linseed dries a lot quicker than raw linseed. So the next stage now, before the resin goes in, it's at least just I'm going to spray this with a cheap varnish, just gloss varnish for me, basically just to finish that wood off. And also we spray the varnish just to seal these little side walls. Now, I've never personally had issues with the resin bleeding or paint, but with the routed out areas, these side sections here, on certain woods, it will bleed into the side walls, so you're not going to get a nice crispier line as we've got so far. So to be safe, I like to spray mine first with varnish. There is wood sealants you can buy, and you will literally just brush it on, and then you let it dry, and then you can start putting your resin in or your paint. I like to just spray it all as if it was a finished project. Get a nice shine on it. Then I know when we put the resin in, hopefully those side walls will be safe. Obviously I'll go off and do this outside, but the general idea is just to spray it like so. We'll give it 3 or 4, 5 coats. Doing the side walls as well. You get the general idea from there. And that way we know it's nicely sealed. And then we're on to the resin side of things. Right, you can see from that we've sprayed our varnish on just enough to give us a nice shine there, as you can see, as if it was a finished piece. And we've hopefully sealed the little barriers in between the coloured resin that we're going to put in now. So once our resin has gone in and it's all nicely cured and dried, this little project will be finished. Now the resin today, I've used different ones, Amazing Clear Cast, craft resin. Today I'm using Vista one. It's 2-part resin, like so. Always check your labels. This is a mix by volume. You can also mix by weight. By volume is obviously 2 little plastic containers I use. These little party ones are fantastic because they do come with little marks on the side, little grooves. So mixing by volume, you can have half a cup of A, half a cup of B, and basically mix the 2 together. Or as you can see, there is little marks on there. You could go up 5 marks for your A, 5 marks for your B, mix together and you're good to go. Follow the instructions. Always have your gloves on. Put a mask on. Some of the fumes can be a bit dodgy to say the least. And plenty of ventilation in your room. Now for coloration wise, you got a lot of options. You can get dyes and inks. Lots and lots of different fancy things that you want. I'm going to use acrylic paints today. Just nice, cheap acrylic paint. Nice, strong, powerful colours. You don't need a lot. Just a little touch. Pop it in with the resin. Give it a nice mix. And then we'll start filling these in. And hopefully, as we fill in, you'll see the image appearing. I'll mix this off camera because it's nothing fantastic. Basically the same thing all the time. Then we'll come back when we've popped a bit of colour in and it's time to start filling this in. We'll do that next. Right, you can see from that we've got the last 2 bits going in now. These spoons are ideal just for scooping up that little bit we need and filling in the gaps like so. Now this has been a slow process and I've done this over a period of 3 days. The good thing about these projects is you can just do it at your leisure and when it suits you. So all of these resin colours are actually cured now, just apart from the blue that we've put in today. So once you've got this final little bit in, I will play about with this a little bit more off camera, but you get the general idea from that. So we just get our little cocktail stick now, this oversized one, just up that long into each corner, as you can see from there. And once it's all in, we can always top it up a little bit more if needed. But for this moment in time, that will definitely do us. And then we just get ourselves a little lighter, a small little blowtorch or whatever you prefer to use, and literally just skim over the top like that. Just quickly. I'll go over all the blues that I've done today. And that will help the bubbles in the resin just come to the top and hopefully disperse along the way. And you can do that in 10 minutes time and go back over it again. Like I say, most of this is actually done. The fish is all nicely solid, and if you remember, the reeds are solid, and take a chance, yes, the dark blues are solid as well. So we'll let this cure overnight, give it a good 24 hours, and then we'll come back tomorrow and see what we've ended up with on our little mosaic fish project. Right, that's it. This little project is finished. Now I've come back 24 hours later. that resin's setting nicely. You still want to leave it a good couple of days. Some people reckon weeks. I've heard say that it takes 30 days for resin to cure completely. That's got to be solid. But for these kind of projects, a couple of days, then you know it's safe to basically move it around. Now remember, with this one, we could have clear coated that resin all over the top of this, let it run down the side, made a nice little table out of this. Because remember, it measures in at 19 inches by 19 inches. But like I said previously, I do prefer the textured feel. I like to feel those grooves in between, but it's a personal thing. If you're not into using resin, you could have painted these exactly the same and then sanded it all down and got the same effect. Or you could also routed out the wood section, leaving all the individual sections standing up, and then painted them beyond. It's entirely up to you, and it's just a personal thing. I just like to use resin at this moment in time, and you can see from that, so nicely set. But to be safe, I would definitely leave it a couple more days before you started moving it around or send it to anybody in the post. These are just for my own personal use. They're just little fun projects at the day, and just enjoy yourself, enjoy what you're making. So there we go. So it's 19 inches by 19 inches. We used CNC bits to do our lines first, and then we cleared out the centre of these little individual pieces with the end milling bits or the straight flush bit. Then we give it a nice tidy up with the Dremel. We popped on our linseed oil just to darken it down, and then we gave it a nice spray with a clear gloss, should I say. That's just to give it a nice finish on the wood, plus it will just seal those inside. If you look close, you're just about to see we've got no bleeding on any of those bits at all. So that served its purpose there. And then we inlaid it all in with Vista 1 resin with acrylic paints to colour with. And that's it. This little project is finished. Thank you very much for watching.